Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. I'm Robert McNeily. Soon, Senator Ted Cruz will hold a press conference regarding school choice, further legislation, perhaps some work in conjunction with President Trump's executive order several weeks ago regarding the beginning of the end of the Department of Education led by Linda McMahon. Of course, it's come with controversy, but this cabinet goes full force right there where everyone won't. This was the vision of President Ronald Reagan, which he could not get done. As great of a leader as he was, President Trump fulfilling that mission, because we know No Child Left Behind was an absolute disaster. And many of us went through our schooling, our education during that process. That was the bulk of my middle school and high school years. And I saw how much of a disaster that was for the prairie state of Illinois, with standardized testing being the same really across all 50 states. We elect school boards and we elect local jurisdictions in order to make those decisions, because parents and teachers who are closest to the students on the ground have a much better way of determining what's best and suitable for their students, rather than a big bloated bureaucracy led by, this was Ted Kennedy's vision, signed into law by President George W. Bush. And both men were flat wrong on public education. So we'll see what the good Senator Ted Cruz has to say about that. We know that Representative Jim Jordan will be in attendance, as well as some other great patriots. But this entire week, celebrating 250 years of our Army, our military. If you caught some of the great coverage, not only this morning from my esteemed colleague Matthew Alvarez, and even earlier days prior, President Trump visiting Fort Bragg in North Carolina for that amazing military display. This will all culminate into Saturday, as we will happily bring to you a military parade in Washington, D.C. The federal city will be on full display, celebrating the great successes of 250 years of our Army. And we have some new and exciting video to show you of those celebrations ready for action. Our beautiful big military on display for you.
The life of a soldier is not just a job, it's a calling and a sacred tradition passed down from father to son, brother to sister, and one generation to the next. At every hour of danger, our noblest citizens have answered that call. Time and again, our enemies have learned that if you dare to threaten the American people, American soldier will chase you down, crush you, and cast you into oblivion. The last sound you ever hear will be the dueling howl of Black Hawks, thunderous boom of artillery fire, the ferocious roar of a U.S. Army infantry brigade. For our adversaries, there's no greater fear than the United States Army. Now it's your duty to shield the flame of freedom that was first lit 250 years ago by the heroes of Concord Bridge and Bunker Hill. Standing before you today, I am more confident than ever that in the days ahead and every generation to come, the U.S. Army will heap glory upon glory. You will protect every inch of U.S. soil, and you will defend America to the ends of the earth.
This will defend, and our brave military doing that on a daily basis, an all-volunteer force that is, quite frankly, incredible. And we saw, as the YMCA song hit at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and the dance moves came out, that military went nuts for their commander-in-chief. It's great to see our military with such gratitude and really going in both directions because it takes the civilian leadership to respect what they do. We know they didn't receive that from Barack Hussein Obama. God knows the auto pen was not even there to even understand the sacrifice they make on a daily basis. But this president knows exactly what they do, can respect them, and gives them that proper salute. So exciting times as we go into Saturday to celebrate 250 years of the United States Army, the most brilliant fighting force in all of the world. Micron has announced massive chips investment, onshoring production. This is breaking news. Today, the Trump administration announced a $200 billion investment by Micron Technology, the sole U.S.-based manufacturer of advanced memory chips. Only the latest large-scale investment secured since President Donald Trump took office. The investment includes construction of a second chip fabrication facility in Boise, Idaho, and this modernizes its Manassas, Virginia facility. Onshoring production of its advanced DRAM technology from Taiwan for the first time and creating 90,000 direct and indirect jobs. It's all part of President Trump's commitment to revitalizing American manufacturing and establishing the country as the global leader in technology, particularly in artificial intelligence. Since President Trump took office, leading technology companies have pledged trillions of dollars in U.S.-based manufacturing and production. This includes Project Stargate, Apple, NVIDIA, IBM, TSMC, and others. It's another big win for American workers, national security, and leadership in the world. And the best is truly yet to come, as this one big, beautiful bill will truly supercharge the American economy. And maybe those holdouts today, there was another fake news report out there that Senator Rand Paul was disinvited from the congressional picnic that will take place tonight. We'll have primetime coverage as well, so stick with us all of this evening and afternoon right here on RSBN Live, which will become RSBN Primetime Live for you, the viewers. And I'm sure President Trump, as he mentioned earlier today in the East Room, after signing that beautiful bill in that signing ceremony to rid California of the EV mandates, he's within his constitutional purview to do that, mind you, saying that, of course, Rand Paul and his beautiful wife, Kelly, invited to the congressional picnic tonight, and they will probably have a couple of moments to discuss the one big, beautiful bill. And as President Trump said, I've always liked Rand. I got him elected a couple of times, and he's probably the biggest holdout vote, one of the toughest votes, at least on the Republican side, when it comes to the United States Senate. So I'm sure the two friends will have a great discussion tonight. And again, the one big, beautiful bill, this needs to pass. There is mandatory spending. There is discretionary spending involved. There is dialogue even amongst friends about how large this is. But at the end of the day, this is common sense legislation that House Speaker Mike Johnson got passed in reconciliation by 215 to 214. How narrow is that? That's why it's important to ramp up for 2026 and get more larger Republican majorities as long as they fulfill the mandate you sent them to do with the 20 promises that became Republican National Committee pledges from the president himself to make America healthy again, to make America wealthy again, to make America strong again, ultimately safe again, and to make America great again. But the inflation report brought more welcome news this week that prices are down and supercharged with President Trump's one big, beautiful bill. Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent told Congress how the one big, beautiful bill, the largest tax cut in history, will boost the progress for middle-class Americans and the private sector without fueling inflation. The one big, beautiful bill will raise take-home pay between $7,800 and $13,300 for the average family of four. It will increase wages between $6,100 to $11,600 for the average worker. That's great news for the middle class. Not only does the one big, beautiful bill add $500 to the child tax credit, it makes permanent these big, beautiful tax credits for these young folks, including the new account set up for those born recently. So to give them a tax-free head start when it comes to a choice in schools, when it comes to a choice in the arts, when it comes to a choice in perhaps apprenticeships down the road, and with the emerging AI sector, imagine that. I think about the young ones in my family 20, 25 years down the road from now. As much advancement in technology that I've seen in roughly 37 years, God knows how those advancements will happen, especially with a Trump golden era economy. The One Big Beautiful Bill cements no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and tax cuts for seniors. Also making the 2017 tax cuts permanent. This will also provide individuals and businesses with certainty and build the economic momentum needed across the good old US of A. Really in turn as well, across the world, as President Trump said, he wants Iran to succeed. He mentioned it this morning, but the Ayatollahs, the mullahs, need to realize that their perverted theocracy and their ideology, their people don't even want that. They're longing for liberty, and they have an opportunity to win through trade and prosperity across the Middle East, and we're seeing that their influence is falling apart. And we pray for peace in the Middle East. It's something that we have to be on caution with and watch what will take place over the course of the next few days, because as President Trump was asked last night at the Kennedy Center, we'll watch what happens with potential preemptive strikes by the Israeli military against the Iranian theocracy that stands really against free people. And they should take a page out of what the Gulf states want to do and their neighbors. Peace and prosperity through economic trading, through letting people in their own nation ultimately decide what you should be able to do. Just like we have here, freedom, peace through liberty, strength in our constitutional foundations. Thank you to our sponsors on the right side of history. All Family Pharmacy. President Trump signed recently that executive order to bring down the cost of prescriptions for you and your family members. Now, online pharmacies like allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN leading the charge in getting that done for you, the good people and viewers at Right Side Broadcasting Network. So scan that QR code now. Use code RSBN20. That's RSBN20 for 20% off. Whether it's ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, methylene blue, those beautiful prescriptions that are essential, over 200 in fact, including the emergency medical kits and antibiotics that will save you and your family literally in a storm. Imagine for a second your pharmacy is closed down the street. There's no urgent care because a natural disaster happens. Remember what happened in Western North Carolina, Tennessee, right along here in Alabama and Georgia just a few months ago, and the way FEMA failed. It was a terrible thing, and many people still reeling from their loss of property and the loss of their homes. But thank God President Trump addressing that, as well as those Southern California wildfires. Those folks just recently got back into their home. Regardless, you should be prepared. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, your go-to and a great sponsor here on the right side of history, as we await Senator Ted Cruz to lead a press conference on school choice. Scheduled for 2:30 Eastern. We'll bring that live to you as we continue to break down the One Big Beautiful Bill, making a massive difference for you, the American people, and the middle class. God willing, the Senate get to work and get this on President Trump's desk before the 4th of July. This legislation passed by the House will provide 100% expensing for new factories as well as existing factories that expand operations and support Made in America. The legislation will also provide the ability to buy a new American-made car and deduct the interest. This bill will also allow us to prevent our corporate revenues from being drained into foreign treasuries, and that is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. If the One Big Beautiful Bill does not pass, it would truly be cataclysmic. It would be the largest tax hike in history. It would be a disaster for businesses and for the middle class across our great nation. And for Americans looking to receive those great tax credits. So we would see increases in taxes of thousands of dollars on working Americans. We would see business contracts just go out the door. And we would also see a substantial increase in the unemployment rate. We don't want that to happen here in this great country. And as we enjoy this afternoon coverage, be sure to stick with us today, as yours truly will be debuting a show tonight along with Mr. Producer and Mr. Director, the voice of reason, with Robert McNeily at 5 o'clock Eastern. So dive in, see our pilot episode. We have a great presidential series for you, as well as subject matter experts touching on the issues that focus on you, the American people. What really does affect you in 2025, we'll dive into all of it, from politics to culture, music, and sports. Gosh, we know how President Trump enjoys his sports and enjoys music, as he enjoyed Les Mis last night. We'll have some more of that in depth starting tonight. Every Thursday evening, tune in the prime time, the voice of reason, starring yours truly, Robert McNeily. We're excited to bring that to you tonight, and stick with us right after that, as we'll be covering in the prime time a congressional picnic to be right there at the White House, as we await Senator Ted Cruz to hold a conference on school choice. We'll see what that entails today, because we know weeks ago President Trump signed that executive order to end the Department of Education, and with that, bringing school choice, states' rights. It makes sense. The 10th Amendment of this great, beautiful Constitution of ours that allows the states to govern in specific areas, because quite frankly, they do it better than the federal government. Now, of course, our securing of the borders, that's federal jurisdiction, the military, federal jurisdiction. But in certain situations like school choice, it needs to be at the local level. It's always done better at the local level. If you read the Federalist Papers, they discuss these core issues. And even as Thomas Jefferson said, you don't see it so much in the South and on the West Coast as you do in New England and the Midwest, but townships. Those are the most efficient forms of government because they are closest to the people. They are what matter most. When you have an issue with your tax assessment, especially property taxes, you can go down the street because your neighbor's the tax assessor. You could go knock on that door and discuss civilly and peacefully and patriotically, of course, why it's too high in your opinion and how that can be brought down. And if you don't like what that person is doing, hey, you can sign up right there and run for their job. That is the constitutional experiment. Our states, the laboratories of democracy, in order to come up with those big, beautiful ideas, and then in turn, a federal government that stays off of your back. And when's the last time the federal government really attempted to shrink itself? Perhaps Ronald Reagan, as he was a champion of liberty, of freedom, our foundation, and making this government work for you. We have not had a champion for liberty quite like him until the citizen president came down that golden escalator in that big, bold, beautiful building he built right there in Manhattan, New York City, the good old US of A. If you can't make it there, you can't make it anywhere. And President Trump showing us on a daily basis the beauty of his business prowess, his expertise, his acumen, and what he learned at the Wharton School of Business and what he learned from his extraordinary father in order to build a real estate empire, to build incredible things and skylines that have blessed New York City, specifically in Manhattan, and Chicago, around the world, Las Vegas, a premier hotel to enjoy all of your fun out on the West Coast. And I'm sure more and more abroad. Think about the Trump Triangle in Scotland with Turnberry, going down into the beautiful Green Isle of Ireland. It's a wonderful thing to think about as this gentleman put that all to the side, along with his family, in order to pursue serving this great nation. And that's something I reflect upon as he gives away his salary every quarter. He takes $1 Legally, he has to, and he joked around about it. If I gave all of it away, perhaps Congress would try to impeach me again, another fake impeachment. And think about all that in the last decade. Fake impeachments, you have assassination attempts, you have the lawfare that attempted to take him off the ballot, and no one else quite like Donald Trump to fight through it all for the American people. And with a comedian's touch on a daily basis, has that access to the media. He is always answering their questions on a daily basis. It's truly an extraordinary thing to watch as we break it all down for you on the right side of history, right here on RSBN. If you're just tuning in now, I'm Robert McNeily. It's always a joy to be with you as we have a whole afternoon and evening of unbridled access and coverage to your government right there in the federal city. And we'll be there for you on Saturday. Be sure to tune in the afternoon for a big, bold military parade to celebrate 250 years of the United States Army, dating back to 1775, when the Continental Congress appointed General George Washington to be the first really commander-in-chief against the United Kingdom, a military empire unrivaled at the time, but they lost, starting with April 1775, with Lexington and Concord, a group of militiamen and Minutemen who stood that bold test of time. Some of them veterans from the French and Indian War, but many of them have never seen conflict prior to that. They were simply peaceful farmers who said enough was enough, all led by the events that were taking place in Boston, Massachusetts, with a Tea Party, the original Tea Party, dating back to those early 1770s, when taxation without representation would not stand, where colonists came together, 13 separate colonies under British rule, and said, no, there are certain inalienable rights, and it dates back to Magna Carta in the 13th century. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. That freedom of speech stands in a constitutional republic, that you are due that ability to bear arms, that you have right to private property, that you can dialogue, that you are entitled to a speedy trial and a fair one of your peers. It stood the test of time for 250 years, and when that Constitution was finally approved on that scorching hot summer day in Philadelphia, PA, that gentleman asked Mr. Benjamin Franklin, Mr. Franklin, what did you give us for a government? And the brilliant statesman, inventor, philosopher, and one of the greatest writers in his time, Poor Richard's Almanac, really that first screen name, that first X account, if you will, before there was all of these social media platforms. He told the gentleman, a republic, if you can keep it. And we stand on the shoulders of those giants now as we await Senator Ted Cruz, a constitutionalist in his own right, to hold a press conference on school choice on this beautiful June 12th. It's a Thursday. Welcome to the right side of history. We'll go to a quick commercial break right now. Stick with us here as we await this press conference to start momentarily.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First news. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
You've heard how hard it can be to get access to medications like ivermectin, all the things they don't want you to take because they're actually effective and they don't cost all that much, right? You've seen that one before. So it's critical to have something like that on hand for any emergency and to be prepared in a time of crisis. And that's why I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy. They're cutting through the nonsense and they make it easy to get hard to find medications when you need them most. They'll provide the prescription, no hoops to jump through, no waiting room, no hassle, and they deliver it right to your door. All Family Pharma even lets you order in bulk so you can stay ahead of the curve. Head over to allfamilypharmacy.com for 10% off your first order. Again, allfamilypharmacy.com. It's simple. Get the 10% savings. Be prepared.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Welcome back to RSBN Live. I'm Robert McNeily. Soon we'll have Senator Ted Cruz holding a press conference on school choice, something that's needed across this great country of ours. As you know, President Trump signing that executive order weeks ago with the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, on hand for that. And that was a big, beautiful bill signing that took place where it really called for legislation to act, specifically from Congress, to then give these rights back to the states. And he was flanked by great children who are studying their education right now from K through 12. It will benefit the youngest in this great nation, the great children of ours, as the largest tax cut in history for working and middle-class Americans. This comes in the form of the One Big Beautiful Bill. Even the demon rats admit the tax policies in the One Big Beautiful Bill are needed and popular, but they still oppose the bill. And that's something you have to ask them peacefully and patriotically, of course, as we do on the right side of history. Why, Mr. Congressman? Why, Miss Congresswoman? And please don't share your pronouns. We know you like to do that, demon rats. But why would you be against something like this? To be clear, this is what they're opposing. The largest tax cut in history for working and middle-class Americans. Also a 15% tax cut for Americans making between $30,000 and $80,000 per year. So basically most of us in the United States. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Boosting the child tax credit to $2,500 for 40 million Americans. Why not put the next generation first? Historic tax cuts for seniors, no tax on car loan interest for American-made cars, and preserving the double standard deduction for 91% of taxpayers. We'd love to have these demon rats on to talk and defend why they are against this One Big Beautiful Bill, but they're also opposed to expanding health savings accounts to give Americans greater choice and flexibility in how they spend their money on their health. There's also investment savings accounts to set all newborn American kids on the path to financial security from the very beginning, and also increasing the death tax exemption for 2 million family farms. Failing to extend the Trump tax cuts alone would stick Americans with the largest tax hike in American history. So if you are represented by a demon rat, please reach out to them and ask their office. And of course, be nice to those working, their staff. They have to deal with the people they are employed under and why they make the decisions they do. But perhaps it's a good question for Speaker, or excuse me, I don't want him to be Speaker. It could happen if you don't vote in 2026. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, he wants to be Speaker, and he'd be a terrible Speaker of the House. But why, Mr. Jeffries, do you push all of your members to not have a conscience of their own? Mike Johnson works well with everybody. He has to reach out to everyone in his caucus, in his conference, to help build a coalition to fight for the mandates that people put into place on November 5th of last year. And President Trump even addressed this today when asked by a wonderful colleague in the media at the White House, and I mean that sincerely. He's a dear friend of mine, asking the question, the media said that you're a king. What do you think about that, Mr. President? And he said, if I was a king, why would I reach out to House Speaker Mike Johnson on all of this good legislation? Why would I help him whip those votes needed in the House? How about Majority Leader Senator John Thune doing an extraordinary job in the United States Senate? Both men doing the impossible with slim majorities to get the great legislative side of President Trump's agenda across the board. As President Trump put it, if I was a king, I would just say, do what I say because I was king. That's not the case. We live in a constitutional republic. We have 3 co-equal branches of government. So when you hear the Looney Tune globalist left-wing fake news legacy media types out there saying that he's a dictator and he's a king and coming up with these crazy terms and saying that Saturday is actually the celebration of some kingdom? No, nothing could be further from the truth. Each and every day, this man puts it all on the line to make America great again. And you don't have to agree with him 24/7, 365. But there's that amount of respect of what he's trying to accomplish on a daily basis and what he has accomplished over the course of not only his first term, but now 100 plus days into the second term, moving at a breakneck pace with an incredible cabinet, a group of subject matter experts unlike any other, who have those open dialogues, who have those appropriate disagreements in order to make America great again. That's what they're working on. That's what they want to do for you, the American people. And that's why we have 50 big wins in this one big, beautiful bill. As we await Senator Ted Cruz to hold a press conference on school choice and the upcoming legislation and how everything's going from a congressional side of things, because we would love to see here on the network an end to the Department of Education. That's what Linda McMahon has been tasked with. By the time it hits our 250th birthday, 1 year from now on the 4th of July, 2026, it'd be nice to see each and every state having their own sovereignty in regards to education policies, because we know the states and localities run it better than the federal government. 50 wins in the one big beautiful bill. Number one, it delivers the largest tax cut in American history. As we were breaking down earlier, this means an extra $5,000 in Americans' pockets with a double-digit % decrease to their tax bills. Americans earning between that $30,000 to $80,000 mark, that's most of us, will pay around 15% less in taxes. A massive victory. Number two, it makes the Trump tax cuts permanent, preventing the largest tax increase ever. If the bill does not pass, Americans will see the largest tax increases in history. This raises Americans' take-home pay by as much as $13,300 and wages by as much as $11,600. It reverses the spending curse, the plague that has fallen upon the federal city of Washington, D.C. The bill delivers the largest deficit reduction in nearly 30 years with $1.6 trillion in mandatory savings. The largest single reduction in mandatory spending in our country's history. This delivers no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. This makes good on two of President Trump's cornerstone campaign promises, which will benefit hardworking Americans where they need it the most, their paychecks. This provides historic tax cuts for seniors. It also finishes President Trump's border wall and brings much needed pay increases to those fighting so hard to not only build the wall, but to protect it and to protect you, in turn, the American people. As a result, 701 miles of primary wall, 900 miles of river barriers, 629 miles of secondary barriers, and 141 miles of vehicle and pedestrian barriers will be constructed. This also boosts Border Patrol and ICE agents on the front lines with the largest border security investment in American history. This means funding to hire 10,000 new ICE personnel, 5,000 new customs officers, and 3,000 new Border Patrol agents to detain and deport at least 1 million illegal immigrants annually. Now, this is so important because we, at least on the books, know of 21 million plus that came over the border during the Autopen's tenure. And look at the damage and the hell it brought to countless American families in the form of fentanyl, in the form of rapes and murders, all preventable crime that should not have happened in the first place. And it's just amazing to me because I've seen some ridiculous things on social media, things by Katy Perry. She's a crappy singer to begin with, but then to add the fact that she would share things like, oh, remember this American nation, California's land was stolen. It's just such nonsense to go out there and promote attacking police officers, whether they be federal law enforcement from ICE to the FBI to your state and local authorities. It's anarchy. It's disgusting. And we're not going to fall for that so-called summer of love, which was really a summer of hate post George Floyd and all of the riots from Black Lives Matter and their communist associates, all funded by maniacs like George Soros. We just speak truth here at the network. It's that simple. This is not right or left. It's just common sense. It's advocating for positive populism. It's advocating for the defense of the family. Because at the end of the day, if you've seen that meme, what the left wants to destroy, the far left communists that are out there, they want to destroy the family, the American flag, and the fact that you enjoy going to church, that you enjoy going to your gym, that you enjoy serving on your school board and your local city councils. And that's where the change happens. It's by defending your family, being the local church. That's what we mean by this at the network. You are the local church outside of that specific building that you might worship on Saturdays or Sundays. But it's first in your family and what you do to serve one another. And then as you go out into the world, how can you make it a better place? A great way to start is by standing up to the anarchists and by standing up to the Hollywood perverts and the so-called elites that want to tell you how to run your lives. They're losers. And at the end of the day, you proved that on November 5th of last year when you sent President Donald Trump back to the White House. Just to get off my soapbox for a moment, number 10, this protects with a big, bold, beautiful bill Medicaid for Americans who truly need it. This bill eliminates waste, fraud, and abuse by ending benefits for at least 1.4 million illegal immigrants who are gaming the system. This also implements popular work requirements for able-bodied Americans receiving taxpayer-funded benefits through common sense Clinton-era work and volunteer education and training requirements. And I'm laughing because remember 1995, good old Al Gore right behind President Clinton, as Slick Willie said to the Congress, we are a nation of immigrants, but we're also a nation of laws. And you saw both sides of the chamber standing up and clapping. What the hell happened in 30 years to the Demon Rat Party? And we saw that climate maniac, Al Gore, right behind him, standing up for his president. They were also the ones who pushed through welfare reform. But for some reason now, The far left would like you to think that able-bodied people should be at home playing Nintendo games and sitting in their parents' basement. Well, you have common sense. That's why you watch this beautiful network. As I think we could go there live now. Senator Ted Cruz speaking with Representative Owens and many more. Let's toss it there live now to Washington, D.C.